All right, welcome to today's training titled You've Got a Friend in Me. Today we're going to talk about the evidence-based practice of Peer Mediated Instruction and Intervention, or PMII. But first, let me tell you a little bit about our project. LaSard is just one of the projects in the Human Development Center. For more information about our services and programs, or to contact the Human Development Center, please visit our website, which is listed here, or by scanning the QR code at the bottom. The Human Development Center is Louisiana's only University Center of Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, or UCED. The Human Development Center offers programs to support people from birth throughout their educational careers and adult lives. LaSard is a K-12 initiative at the Human Development Center. Our interdisciplinary team consistently works together to find innovative ways to help districts, teachers, and students grow throughout the state. Our goals for this training. Participants will understand the importance of implementing a peer-mediated intervention in the school setting, learn the steps to implement a peer-mediated program for their student, and you're going to see an example of a middle school PMII program that was implemented a few years ago. So what's the big idea of this training? Why are you here today? The big idea is that we want our students and children to have a pretty good life in and outside of school. They say a person needs just 3 things to be truly happy in this world: someone to love, something to do, and somewhere to go. But would all of these things be meaningful if you didn't have someone to experience or share these moments with? That's when having close relationships can help bring all of these areas together and truly make a difference in someone's life. Next, I'm going to introduce you to 2 students, and I want you to determine if they have a pretty good life because of their peer relationships in the school setting. This is Kerry, and he has a diagnosis of autism. Kerry was actually a student of mine when he was in 4th grade, and his mom wrote this incredible testimonial on what his peer relationships meant to her and him throughout his school years. LaSard came into our lives during Kerry's 4th grade year at RJVL Elementary. They helped the teachers, paraeducators, and me understand the importance of proactive strategies. His dedicated teachers used his love of crescent moons and riding the bus to create a behavior chart that encouraged Kerry to complete work and make good choices. Visual schedules and peer supports helped him to keep him motivated and on track. Having classmates work with Kerry also strengthened his social skills. By the 4th grade year, he was actively participating in morning meeting, spending more instructional time in the general education setting, and eating lunch in the cafeteria with other students. I firmly believe that Kerry's inclusion time with his peers is what led to such a successful 4th grade year. Kerry is a freshman in high school and continues to use visual aids, peer supports, and inclusion time. He is a cadet in the ROTC program where he receives constant support and encouragement from his classmates. These resources and student supports are what helped my son have a smooth transition to 9th grade. The peers that supported Kerry in 4th grade also transitioned with him to middle school and then to high school. Throughout all of his big life changes, his peers were there for him. When he graduated high school, the students in the audience cheered louder for him over any other student that night. That's what peer relationships can do. See that little boy in the middle? That's Logan, and he also has a diagnosis of autism, and he is also my son. As a parent, I was a nervous wreck sending him to school for the first time, but he ended up making 2 of the best friends who have truly made a difference in his life. If you think they look alike, it's because they do. They're twins, but they also have the biggest heart that I will forever be thankful for. Logan has been in class with them since kindergarten. He is currently in 3rd grade. Even though they are siblings, they have very different personalities and support Logan in ways his teachers wouldn't be able to. Renan is a leader in the class and is very adventurous. He has many other friends throughout the grade level and also loves sports. So when they are outside for recess, teachers can always count on Renan to invite Logan to play with him and his other friends. He teaches and introduces Logan to the topics and phrases that most 8-year-olds are saying these days. I guess I should be thankful that I'm officially a bro, because at least it's what all the other cool kids are saying these days. It also takes time. He also takes the time to listen to Logan go on and on about his special interests, animals, dinosaurs, insects, even though he's been hearing about it for years now. Vivian is an absolute sweetheart and every teacher's dream student. When Logan needs help with something in class, whether it's academics or opening a bag of chips for snack, he knows he can always count on her. But she knows better than to do too much for him because she wants to encourage him to be as independent as possible. One day he got stuck showing his work for a math problem, so he asked Vivian to help him. She told him that she wasn't going to do the work for him, but she would model how it's done, and then he could copy the work on his paper. She's the mini parent in the classroom who encourages Logan to try his best every day. She also writes him notes and draws him pictures to put a smile on his face when he's having a rough day. Like I said, these kids have been together for 4 years now. They started out as just students in the classroom, to peers working with each other, to now good friends. They always celebrate each other, whether it's honor roll, terrific kid selection, or performances in a talent show. These are the memories that will stick with them forever. Remember our graphic, A Pretty Good Life, someone to love, somewhere to go, and something to do? Well, this is Logan living his best life. Someone to love, he loves his friends, and these are just 2 of them, and he has many, and they love him. Somewhere to go, he goes places with them outside of school. Their birthday party was the first non-family birthday party that he was invited to from school, and I didn't think a party invitation would make me so emotional. Something to do, we've been to the zoo, aquarium, movies, trampoline parks, and other places just because they genuinely like to hang out together with him. Renan and Vivian will never know the difference they are making in Logan's life, but I know he wouldn't be who he is today without their love and support over the last few years. And I know they will be there for him throughout all of those big life changes, just like Carrie and his friends. So when you think about what makes a good peer model, these kids check every box. It all starts with implementing a peer-mediated instruction and intervention program at your school. So what is that? It's an intervention designed to teach peers without disabilities how to interact with and support diverse learners. PMII is used for teaching diverse learners social and communication skills. And just to note, it's designed to support these students in their natural settings, such as the general education classes, the cafeteria, or the playground. It is appropriate for all ages. It just may look very different for younger students versus older students. So in lower elementary grades, peers may be working on sharing and appropriate play at recess. And for older students, they may be working on the steps to have a full conversation. In this picture, you see Vivian reading Logan a book that everyone else in the class has to read. Since Logan struggles with reading grade level text, he asked her to help him read it because his teacher was busy at that moment and he didn't want to fall behind or bother her. He pulled up a pillow and sat down next to her desk as she read away. Talk about the sweetest moment. So, did I sell you yet on implementing a PMII program yet at your school with Carrie and Logan's story? If so, here are the steps to get started. We will look at how to plan for PMII, how to implement PMII by selecting, training, and supporting the peer models, and how to evaluate the progress. So let's get started with the planning step. Step 1, before you can start this program, you have to find your biggest cheerleader at the school. Who will get this program up and running? Who will plan and lead the meetings? Will any other staff members be involved? If the students you want to target are in clubs or specific general education classes, you may want to consider involving the sponsors or teachers of those classes. If the student works with a paraeducator, or if they are close to another staff member, consider inviting them to join this team. Step 2, be sure you have a goal in mind as you are developing this program for your target student. It may be different for each student. Oftentimes, PMII is implemented to increase social communication skills. Other times, it may be to support students academically. This is what you will train the peers to support and what you will measure to determine the success of this program. The handout on this slide is a free resource from the Affirm modules to help you determine the best area to start. And I'll have more information about this resource at the end of the training. Step 3. The next question to consider is which peers will be selected. First, review the goals and determine where the students will be needing support, a specific class, during lunch, during recess. Now look at the students who are in that area with the student. When selecting the peers, you want to stay between 2 and 4 peers for each target student. It's important that the peers you select are interested in participating and it's not a forced activity for them. But where do you find these students? Don't just pick the best of the best. Think about including students that may need a little encouragement for their social skills as well. Look for students who naturally gravitate towards your students. Look for students in some of your inclusion classes or general education settings who would be interested in this type of opportunity. Advertise, put out an announcement, make a poster stating what you're looking for. Consider different clubs, leadership committee, student council, key club, K kids, word of mouth. Buddies are very good at referring new friends. And then if this becomes a really big deal at your school and you have a lot of kids interested, have an application process. Have them submit why they want to join this club, what type of difference they can make for these students. This is another great resource from the Affirm module. Once you have a certain number of students in mind, then you can review the peer characteristics on this checklist to see if they would be a good fit with your target student. It is also best practice to send home a parent permission letter with the students you would like to participate in this program. Parents should be aware that their child is involved in this at school, and it's an incredible honor that their child was selected to help make a difference in another student's life. Step 4. When implementing this program, you will want to meet frequently to start with the training of specific supports and strategies and touching base about other concerns. Think about the best day and time for these meetings to take place. It cannot take place during instruction, but could you meet with the students during morning meeting, lunch, or even recess? Where will you meet? Will there be an open classroom or office that you can reserve for all these meetings? Since you will be talking about specific students and their needs, it's important that this area is private. Step 5. What will the meetings look like? It's best to have a structured meeting agenda covering the student updates, new training content, and addressing new concerns they may have. You really don't have a lot of time for these meetings, so you want to make every moment count. You may also want them to go over any successes or challenges they've had with the target student. Next steps should also be included in the meeting so these students know what to expect when the meeting is over. Step 6. Finally, you will think about what data will be collected. Develop a progress monitoring form and have it available in all settings that PMII is implemented. This form will include the goals for the target student involved. For example, if you are targeting the number of conversation exchanges, that's what should be on the data collection form. All staff that are involved with the student should be aware of what's on the form and how to collect the data. The data should be reviewed on a regular basis by the teacher and the leader of this program, and you want to make sure that the PMII program is working. If not, the staff member will need to reconvene and troubleshoot. Now that you have planned out the program, it's time to train the peer models you selected to participate. Time to implement. Now that you have the peers to participate, they need to be trained before working with the target student. You can train the peers by informing them about the student they will be working with. You may want to include how they communicate, how they interact with their environment, how they learn about their likes and dislikes so they can understand more about the target student. Remember to only share relevant information related to what they need to know to support the student to meet that goal. Explain to the peer supports what their role or job is with the student so that they know what is expected of them. Talk with them about targeted skills for the student so they understand what they are working on. Role play with them, how they're supposed to implement the different strategies so they can implement, and you can be sure they know what to do. Finally, educate the peer models on how to record notes about their interactions with the student so they are able to report in the weekly meetings the successes and challenges they are having. Once you have finished training the peers and they begin to work with the target student, you will need to continue to support them as needed. It's important to get their feedback through weekly or bi-weekly meetings where you can celebrate those successes and challenges and give them strategies and ideas if something isn't working. Be sure you are following up with them about how they're feeling with their position. It is possible for peers to get burnt out or overwhelmed or frustrated, and you want to address those concerns and any new concerns that may occur. These meetings are also a good time to discuss goals for the week coming up and review any data from the staff members and peer notes. So now that the peer models are ready to put their knowledge and skills into action, it is go time. If the student has several trained peer models, you will want to have a schedule so each peer knows when they should be supporting the target student. Since consistency is key, be sure to plan for at least one time frame a day where the peers can interact with and practice the skills you've been training them on. The peer models should also have access to all of the materials needed to participate in the session with the target student. If the goal is to engage in conversation with a conversation map, then they should have a printed copy of the conversation map at hand that morning. You will want to make sure that the peer models are using and doing everything correctly. So observing them and providing ongoing feedback will help lead to successful implementation. So like everything we do, data drives instruction and will let us know if this program is helping our target student or not. So we need to progress monitor. Several times in the school year, the teacher in charge of the PMII program should evaluate how the program is progressing. They need to see if the program is going as planned and determine if changes are needed. The academic progress, the behavior, and the social interaction of the target student should be tracked using progress monitoring data, and the peer models should also be monitored to determine if they are the right fit and if they need further training and support. Going back to the Affirm resources, here's another great resource that can help with progress monitoring. And finally, our last step, support peers. Providing ongoing support with the peer models throughout the year is critical. You may not have to meet as often, but you still want to meet to celebrate those successes, troubleshoot any issues, and conduct periodic observations for your own notes to see how things are going in case you have to make changes to the program. So now let's take a moment to look at the steps of implementation of a real PMII program that we implemented at a middle school in New Orleans. For this program, we had one school staff member, one target student with autism, 3 peer models. We met twice a month during morning meeting in the conference room near the front office. Once the lead staff member selected the peer models, we obtained parent permission and we had our first training session. We provided an overview of the new club, talked about the purpose of PMII, and a simple explanation of what was autism to help the peers understand why we're going to focus on specific skills with the target student. They actually came up with the name of the club, the Breakfast Club, because we always met during their breakfast time. Our next session focused on developing a support plan for the target student. Since the peers knew him better than we did, they actually shared some valuable information regarding ideas of ways we could start supporting him. So our goal was to increase peer interactions and appropriate behavior in the general education classroom. They shared that he blurted out a lot in the classroom and he sat in the back of the classroom away from his peers. This is what he preferred. After talking to his general education teacher, she put another desk in the back next to his, and she was on board with using this simple narrative and visual to remind him of those expectations. She initially introduced the support and taught these strategies to him, and then the peer models would point to the visual anytime he needed to think, write, or raise his hand to share out. We saw a decrease in blurting out behaviors weeks after implementation. And to make sure the peer models were prepared for those interactions, we had them role play several times with one another during our morning training sessions before the strategies were even used with the target student. Next, they shared that the target student really struggled with transitions, especially if he didn't finish an activity in class before transitioning to the next class. We provided a training on why students with autism struggle with transitions so much, and then we came up with the idea of a finish later folder. After the teacher initially taught the strategy to the student, They would remind him to put his unfinished work in the folder as class was ending and that he would have time at the end of the day to work on all of it. Again, this helped tremendously with his behaviors. So after the new year, we wanted to focus on meaningful peer interactions, since that's what he struggled with the most. He was fine sitting next to them in the classroom and the occasional peer prompting, but that was the extent of his peer relationships. He didn't really want to talk to anyone about his interests. His cafeteria routine involved sitting by adults, eating, and then going to sleep. So we did an activity during one of our morning meeting sessions with our student involved on finding the green zone. This helped every peer model find a similar interest with him. And we learned that he loved dressing in style and food. So those are both very easy topics that everybody could relate to. So after conducting some initial observations, the interactions were not going as planned. So we reached out to his mom for some ideas of things that we can use as reinforcement. We also learned that we needed to structure these interactions because there's only so much you can talk about when it comes to your favorite clothes and food items. So we came up with the lunch chat. The students asked each other the questions on the support, which focused on turn taking and remaining on topic and appropriate peer conversations. And at the end of the interaction, the target student would get his reinforcement, which was candy. Well, after 2 days, our target student gave us some honest feedback and said that the jokes we had on the support were not funny. So back to the drawing board to develop a support that everybody liked. And this was the final outcome of the lunch, and the lunch interactions continued throughout the school year. We had a binder in the office with copies of the lunch chat with new questions for each day that the peer models would go and grab right before lunch and then return after lunch. The leader of the program planned on continuing the peer support program the following year and selecting new peer models to participate to help generalize the skills that we worked on together that year. So here are some helpful tips for using PMII. Always ask the target student their opinion of how things are going. It's very important for the student to understand the goals and if they have any concerns or if they're uncomfortable with any aspect of PMII, take this into consideration. Especially for those older students, they may not want to be thought of as a project for other students. And if they have concerns, hear them out and adapt the program as needed. Consider the time of day that would work best for PMII. You want to find a time where social interaction is naturally occurring, such as lunch, small groups in class, or transitions between class. Once you have success in one setting and activity, consider expanding it to additional times throughout the day. Choose activities that are enjoyable for the students and peers, and be sure that activities are age appropriate and encourage interactions. Once you have determined peers that are successful with your target student, make an effort to schedule them in the same classes next year and then add a few more to start generalizing those skills. And I mentioned the Affirm modules a few times, so here is the link and the QR code for that resource if you want to take a moment and scan it with your phone. If not, you can easily Google Affirm modules and a bunch of online resources come up. You can create a free username and password and access the resources for different evidence-based practices. So if you have any questions about what we talked about today, you can email us at lassard@lsuhsc.edu.